was a cold October night in 2021, the kind that sends an early chill through the air, making every fallen leaf sound like an ominous whisper. I was patrolling the quiet streets of Maplewood, a suburban town where crime seldom happened, and trouble seemed like a distant nightmare. My partner, Officer Lance, had a few years on me, and often told stories that made me laugh, even in the most mundane hours of the night. But that evening, the laughter would soon evaporate, leaving a heavy dread in its wake. As I turned onto Elm Street, the air hung thick with the scent of wet earth, a sign of the rain that had drenched us earlier in the evening. I often found myself lost in the rhythm of the night, serenaded by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant sirens. I was a rookie, eager yet cautious, still getting accustomed to the subtle nuances of the job. Then, suddenly, my radio crackled, pulling me from my thoughts. It was dispatch, reporting a foot pursuit in the neighborhood. A suspect last seen fleeing towards a large old Victorian home on the corner of Maple and Pine. Lance and I sped toward the address, the tires of our cruiser slicing through puddles, sending sprays of water into the night. As we arrived, I noted the eerie silence that surrounded the house, the windows shrouded in darkness. I got out, my flashlight flickering. As I approached the door, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, almost as if the house was holding its breath. We shared a glance, the unspoken fear evident in his furrowed brow as we prepared to enter the unsettling space that might harbor a desperate fugitive. The front door creaked open, revealing a narrow hallway that seemed to stretch into darkness. An immediate chill coursed through me, and I glanced at Lance, who nodded, silently agreeing to split up for the search. I took a deep breath and moved forward, my flashlight cutting through the shadows. Each step felt more heavy, the old wooden floorboards protesting underfoot. I glanced around, noting the peeling wallpaper and the dust that seemed to linger undisturbed as if time had forgotten this place. As I moved deeper into the house, I heard a faint scuffle behind me, like the sound of footsteps retreating. I turned quickly, but nothing was there. Just the oppressive silence enveloped me, closing in like a vice. I flicked my flashlight around, noting the worn-out furniture draped in sheets, which resembled forlorn figures in the gloom. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, though I was alone, or so I thought. I stepped into what appeared to be a living room, cluttered with debris and stained carpets. A sense of foreboding settled over me, a feeling you can't ignore no matter how hard you try. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, jolting me into action. I was on high alert now, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I radioed Lance, my voice steady despite the rising fear. I heard a noise upstairs. I think he's still in here. Check your side. I could almost hear his footsteps as he moved cautiously, matching my caution. I had no idea what awaited us, but the thought of confronting a desperate criminal sent a wave of adrenaline surging through me. I climbed the staircase, each step creaking under my weight, the sound echoing in the empty house. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of something rotting permeated the atmosphere. As I reached the top, the narrow hallway greeted me, the doors to the bedrooms standing ajar, the darkness within beckoning. I cautiously moved toward the first door on my left, heart pounding as I nudged it open. It creaked ominously, revealing a perfectly made bed, untouched by time. No one was inside, but something didn't feel right. I continued along the corridor, checking each bedroom, but to my dismay, they were all empty. Just as I was about to turn back, I heard a noise, a soft whispering, barely audible, coming from the last room at the end of the hallway. It sent chills down my spine, and I called out, "Is anyone in there?" But there was only silence. I approached the door cautiously, gripping my flashlight tightly, illuminating the dark surface as I pushed it open. The room was a nursery, toys scattered everywhere, and the air felt icy cold. In the center of the room stood a rocking chair, creaking back and forth on its own. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. "Lance," I shouted, panic creeping in. There was no response. The chair continued its eerie motion as if someone or something was still there, despite the absence of life. I caught sight of a small blue stuffed animal lying on the floor, the same one I had given to my little sister when she was just a child. An unsettling familiarity washed over me, and I took a cautious step back. Then a loud thud sounded from beneath me, like a heavy footstep on the floor below. I spun around, shining my light in every corner of the room. I knew I had to find Lance. I couldn't be alone in this house any longer. I turned and rushed back down the hallway, but as I reached the stairs, I was struck by an overwhelming feeling of dread. The whispers echoed again, this time more insistent, a low chant that seemed to reverberate off the walls. When I reached the bottom floor, I found Lance standing near the doorway, his face pale, eyes wide as he gestured frantically for me to come outside. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he just shook his head, panic written all over his features. "You won't believe what I saw." We stepped outside into the cool night air, and just as I was about to question him further, I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. A shadow flitted past the window upstairs, leaving me frozen in my tracks. I turned back to Lance, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you see that?" He nodded, the fear palpable. "We have to get out of here." We ran back to the cruiser and jumped inside, slamming the doors shut. My heart raced as we looked back at the house, its windows now completely dark, as if whatever had been lurking inside had finally settled down for the night. It was as if the house had swallowed its secrets whole, leaving no trace of a suspect behind. I couldn't shake the feeling that we had not just left a place of crime, but a realm of something sinister. Days later, we reviewed the reports, but there was no sign of anyone ever living in that house. The address had been abandoned for years, a hollow shell left to rot. I thought about that room, the rocking chair, and the whispers that had haunted me. Sometimes late at night, I still hear them in my dreams, a reminder of that chilling encounter. The house remains, a specter of the unknown, and I can't help but wonder what actually transpired that night. Did we encounter a ghost, or was it merely our minds playing tricks? To this day, the truth remains elusive, echoing in the back of my mind like a haunting lullaby. It was late spring, May 5th, 2022, and the night felt unusually stifled, the air thick with humidity, as I drove through the desolate streets of Lakewood. The small town was known for its tranquil beauty, but that night, it was anything but peaceful. As the shadows lengthened and the sun dipped below the horizon, I settled into my cruiser for the night shift. The familiar hum of the engine felt oddly comforting amid an atmosphere so charged with unrest. Rain had fallen earlier, leaving behind a cloying scent of wet asphalt mixed with something darker that clung to the air, an aroma that sent a shiver down my spine. Around 9 p.m., I received a call from dispatch, heightened voices crackling through the radio. A woman reported hearing a child's voice pleading for help coming from an abandoned house at the edge of town. Her tone was frantic, barely able to articulate her fear. I'd heard many strange stories, but something about her plea sent an unease deep into my gut. I radioed for backup, knowing I wouldn't be alone in facing whatever waited in that shadowy structure. The amber glow of the streetlights flickered as I drove toward the address, casting a ghastly light over the landscape. The house was a decrepit shell, overtaken by unkempt weeds and flanked by trees that seemed to touch the sky. I parked the cruiser and stepped outside, the humidity wrapping around me like a wet blanket. As I approached the door, the oppressive silence settled around me, every sound amplifying in the stillness. An owl hooted in the distance, and the rustle of leaves sounded like whispers in my ears. I knocked on the door, but it creaked open with a mind of its own, revealing the darkened interior that instantly sent a shiver through my spine. A beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like lost spirits. The living room was untouched by time, the furniture covered in sheets that draped over the remnants of a life once lived. Musty scents filled my nostrils, and I hesitated, wondering if this was the place where I'd uncover something deeply unsettling. Just then, the faint sound of a child's laughter echoed from the back of the house, a sound that curled around my heart like a cold hand. My pulse quickened. Was it a prank? Surely, no child would be in a place like this. I moved toward the sound hesitantly, heart thudding in my chest as I crept down a narrow hallway. Each step seemed to reverberate through the empty house. I reached a doorway leading to what appeared to be a nursery. Peeking my head in, I squinted, but what I saw chilled me to my core. A rickety crib stood at the center of the room, and around it were scattered toys, all of them gathering dust as if they had waited for a child who never came back. Suddenly I heard it again, the pleading voice of a child. "Help me," it cried, soft yet insistent. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. It was clear this was no ordinary situation. I stepped further inside, my hands trembling, as I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" But the only response was a suffocating silence, the air heavy with a sense of foreboding. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I knew I needed to find that child, and fast. I grabbed my radio, my voice steady despite my fear. "Dispatch, I need assistance. I'm in the abandoned house. There's a child's voice." I turned, about to leave the nursery, when I heard footsteps behind me, soft and shuffling, as if someone was creeping into the room. I froze, fear gripping my heart. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice from shaking. But there was no answer, just more silence, thick enough to suffocate. I turned slowly, but there was nothing, just shadows stretching and warping against the light from my flashlight. My instincts shouted at me to leave, but the child's voice echoed in my ears, luring me deeper into the house. Then, in a moment of rash bravery, I stepped back into the hallway. My mind raced, debating if I should venture further into the dark depths or wait for backup. But then, I remembered the woman's fear in her voice, the urgency of a child's cry. I pressed forward, taking another step, when suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, heart racing, adrenaline flooding my senses. I pounded on the door, shouting for it to open, but my pleas echoed back at me, mocking my fear. Just then, the child's voice called out once more, clearer now, and it sent chills racing down my spine. "Help me find my mommy," it whimpered. I felt an inexplicable pull toward the voice, as if it was resonating with something deep within me. I fought against my fear, my instincts screaming at me to run, but I couldn't abandon a child. I held my flashlight high and moved deeper into the shadowy hallway, my heart thundering in my ears. My flashlight flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced along the wall, and then silence. I reached the end of the hallway where I saw a door leading down into the basement. The whispers grew louder, blending with the sound of the wind howling outside. I swung the door open, revealing a dark void that swallowed the light. I hesitated, knowing that once I descended those stairs, there may be no turning back. But the voice was insistent, pulling at my heartstrings like a siren, luring me into the depths. As I descended the creaking steps, the air grew colder, a chill creeping into my bones. I reached the bottom and shone my flashlight around, illuminating walls coated in grime and the unmistakable scent of decay. "Anyone down here?" I called out, but my voice felt hollow against the oppressive silence. I stood frozen in the center of the basement, the beam of my light flickering like a dying star. And then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a child's laughter, echoing from the corners shrouded in darkness, a sound both sweet and utterly terrifying. I turned the corner and found a small, forgotten room at the back of the basement, filled with old toys and dust-covered blankets, remnants of the innocence once cherished. In the corner, I saw the silhouette of a small figure, a child sitting on the floor, playing with the toys. "There you are," I exclaimed, a mix of relief and horror flooding through me. But just as I took a step closer, the figure turned toward me, its face shrouded in shadow. "Help me find my mommy," it repeated, the voice now distorted, as if twisted by some unseen force. I stumbled back, heart pounding, as I realized this was no ordinary child. The air felt heavy, thick with something malevolent, something that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. "Where's your mother?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling. The child simply pointed toward a dark corner of the room that I hadn't yet illuminated, and a cold wave of fear washed over me. I turned my flashlight in that direction, but before I could see what lay there, I was yanked backward, as if pulled by an unseen force. I stumbled and fell, my flashlight rolling away into the shadows, its beam flickering before going out completely. Desperation clawed at me as I scrambled to my feet and lunged toward the stairs. The child's laughter echoed hauntingly, vibrating through the air like a chilling melody. I felt a cold grip on my ankle, dragging me back toward the darkness, my scream mingling with the laughter that seemed to envelop me. I fought with everything I had, clawing my way up the stairs, the sensation of being watched growing stronger with every step. I burst out the door, slamming it shut behind me, and my heart raced as I threw myself against it, gasping for air. I collapsed outside in the soft grass, panting, the pungent smell of rain-soaked earth filling my lungs. I watched the house, its dark windows watching me in return. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that whatever was inside was still there waiting. Backup arrived shortly after, but I could never bring myself to return to that house. The woman who reported the voice, she never came forward again. The darkness of that night lingers in my mind, a reminder of the child who called for help but was never meant to be saved. It was a chilly night on June 15th, 2022, when the forest came alive with the sounds of the unknown. I was on patrol near the outskirts of Timberline, a town shadowed by ancient trees that towered like sentinels over the landscape. The moon hung low in the sky, casting ghostly light across the terrain, and I could feel the weight of darkness settle around me as I navigated the narrow dirt roads. I had been assigned to monitor the area due to a series of strange occurrences reported by hikers, stories of unnerving whispers and shadows darting between the trees. I parked my cruiser at the edge of the woods, the engine humming softly before I turned it off, plunging myself into silence. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth, yet something felt distinctly off. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped into the darkness, the beam of light cutting through the thick fog that rolled in from the canopy. Each footfall felt amplified, echoing in the stillness as the whispers began, soft and unintelligible, like secrets being shared among the trees. I paused, straining to listen, my heart pounding at the sudden sense of vulnerability. Just a few feet into the woods, I came upon a small clearing, moonlight filtering through the branches, illuminating the area in an ethereal glow. In the center, an old rotting picnic table sat neglected, a haunting reminder of past gatherings. I felt a pull, an odd curiosity that beckoned me closer. As I approached, the whispers intensified, forming words that seemed to swirl around me. "Help us," they pleaded, chilling my blood. I shook my head, convinced it was my mind playing tricks on me, and turned to leave when I noticed something glinting in the moonlight beneath the table. I knelt down, my flashlight illuminating a silver locket, tarnished but beautiful. It looked familiar, as if I had seen it before. An instinct urged me to pick it up, and as my fingers grazed the cold metal, the whispers grew louder, reverberating through the clearing. "Return it," they begged. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, fear gripping me as I stood up abruptly and backed away from the table. I had always been a skeptic, but at that moment I couldn't deny the profound sense that something sinister was at play. I quickly assessed my surroundings, suddenly feeling very much alone. The trees seemed to close in around me, their gnarled limbs reaching like grasping fingers. My instincts screamed for me to get back to my cruiser, to escape this eerie place. As I turned to leave, I heard a laughter, childlike and sweet, echoing among the bushes. It sent chills racing down my spine. "Is anyone there?" I called, trying to keep my voice steady. The laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence that enveloped me once more. I forced myself to take a step, but before I could move, the temperature plummeted, a cold wave washing over me. I gripped the locket tighter, my heart racing as the whispers morphed into a cacophony of cries, echoing through the forest. "Help us, please," the voices cried out, desperation pooling at my feet. I stumbled backward, hitting a tree, the bark scratching against my skin like claws. Trapped between fleeting shadows and twisting fears, panic enveloped me as I turned to run, but I felt as though the trees were closing in, blocking my escape. I dashed back toward the picnic table, without thinking, seeking some form of protection in that cursed space. The whispers now circled around me, each syllable a desperate plea ripping through the night air. It felt as if the very ground was alive, pulling at my legs, urging me to stay. I looked back at the locket still in my hand, the silver gleaming ominously. I couldn't tell if the locket was a key to their freedom or a trap meant to lure me deeper into the darkness. My pulse pounded in my ears as I took a deep breath, forcing my legs to move, to break free from the invisible chains binding me. As I sprinted away, the laughter returned, echoing through the trees, now mocking me, haunting me as I navigated the labyrinth of trunks and shadows. I felt the cold grasp of something brushing against my neck, the whispers growing into a deafening roar, pleading, angry, desperate. My flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows, and as I turned a corner I saw them, a group of ghostly figures standing at the edge of the clearing, their eyes hollow, mouths moving, as they continued to chant, "Help us." My breath caught in my throat, terror flooding my senses. I missed my cruiser, the safety it represented. My footsteps became clumsy, fear overwhelming my rationality as I pushed forward. But the figures followed, gliding silently through the trees. I quickened my pace, adrenaline surging as I struggled to break free from their grasp. Just as I thought I might escape, the whispers transformed into a scream, a cacophony of sorrow that echoed through the very fabric of the night. I stumbled into the clearing where my cruiser was parked, the headlights flickering to life as if sensing the urgency of my fear. I dove into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut and locked it, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the keys. I could feel their presence outside, shadows moving just beyond the reach of the light. As I started the engine, the headlights illuminated the trees, and for a brief moment I caught a glimpse of the figures, pale, sorrowful faces twisted in grief, before I hit the accelerator and sped away. My heart raced as I left the clearing behind, the screams echoing in my mind, a haunting reminder of those lost souls who lingered, waiting for someone to listen. Despite the growing distance, the whispers never left me. They followed me home, clinging to the edges of my thoughts and invading my dreams. I tried to push the memories away, but the locket remained on my dashboard, a constant reminder of that night. Some nights, when the wind howled, I could almost hear their cries, begging for help, a chilling echo of despair. Timberline remained a peaceful town to many, but I knew better. Something sinister lay in those woods, waiting for the next unwitting soul to answer their call.